Wow, good morning. It's Eddie G's Music World for September 3rd, 2019. I I have a huge week coming up with appointments and lots of stuff to do. So I figured I'd get an early start to the week with my show. Uh, we discussed music, and this topic today, I figured I would go for a countdown of the number one songs for many years, we'll start with these are according to Billboard's Top 100. We'll start with 2017. There's the list goes earlier, way earlier than that, but it starts kind of like more modern and it goes backwards in time. Number one for 2017 is Ed Sheeran. The song is "Shape of You," and of course that was overplayed beyond belief. And he's a young guy that's become a big producer, songwriter, singer, guitarist, and taken over the world. He's kind of the new guy out there in the music business. He was the number one concert act, as I said last week on my show. The year before that, 2016, another guy who's been a phenomenon since 2007, a Canadian, Justin Bieber. Well, we all know who he is. The song "Love Yourself." I'm assuming I've heard it. Uh, let's see. Well, I'm not going to play the songs because I'm not sure how it goes with sound, and I don't want to. I don't want to risk having very poor sound on this. So I'll leave it for today as just discussing the songs. Backing up before that, this is a guy who was writing a song with Howard Stern, but it was so bad they didn't play it. Mark Ronson of 2015, he had the number one song. Of course, this is featuring Bruno Mars, and the song is Uptown Funk. Played a lot. I think he's being sued by somebody. It sounds a bit like another song. That's nothing new. And Bruno Mars, that was massive. Since then, he must have had a couple other hits, but I can't think of them. Going backwards in time, 2014, Pharrell Williams, "Happy." Of course, he was in the song with Robin Thicke and whoever the other one was, where he sounded a little bit like Marvin Gaye song "Got to Give It Up" with a different song, "Blurred Lines." But "Happy" was his song, and he was really big with that. That was on it's on commercials now. Pharrell Williams is another one of these types of guys like an Ed Sheeran. People are coming after him to write songs. He's written many hit songs. So he had the number one song. Makes sense. It was played a lot on the radio. Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, the biggest song of 2013. The song was "Thrift Shop," and that was played a lot on the radio. I remember hearing it non-stop for that time, and you never really hear it again, but that's typical of pop music. Most of it doesn't last that long. Now, this next one is a bit of a surprise. For 2012, this Act Goit, somebody that I used to know. Now, I used to see the video a lot, and I heard it on the radio a little too, but I never thought it was the biggest song of that year. I'm not sure who else was trying to do that. Like who else was like in the running for the number one song? Like what other huge song there was of 2012? It features Kimbra, who I think is singing as well. No surprise, 2011 was the year of Adele, "Rolling in the Deep." Don't have to tell you much about her. She's one of these types that she comes up with an album. There's like a massive rush to the record store, no matter if you can download it or not. Maybe you go to Walmart and buy it. But of course, she downloads a lot too, and I think she's had a couple of hits about 2-3 years ago, but I'm not sure if she's still coming out. But I'm not good at predicting the future, but I'm sure Adele will be an important act for years to come. This is Eddie G's Music World. We are counting down Billboard's top songs of each year, going backwards in time. Kesha, "TikTok." Good bubblegum song for the time. She did have a bunch of hits since then, and she had a massive fight with her producer. I don't know what happened there. She says he made her do stuff, pushed her into this and that, signed over too much, sexually exploited her. So I don't know. I'm not sure what's happening with her, but she's still around. She still has songs coming out, so she's not gone. And TikTok was huge. 2009, Black Eyed Peas, "Boom Boom Pow." I would have thought I've Got a Feeling would be the number one for that year, but Boom Boom Pow was, according to Billboard's lists, and they're no longer around, or if they are, they're pretty low key. Um, 2008 is Flo Rida, Low. That was really big. He went on Howard Stern and tossed the money in the air, and he's got to be slowing down a little bit. Uh, I'm sure 3 4 years ago he still had hits, but I don't know about 2019. This is featuring T Pain. This Low. By the way, the list doesn't include 2019, but you pretty much can guess it's Billy Ray Cyrus and Nas X with that Hometown Road is going to be the biggest. Even though I don't have a list for it. 2007, Beyonce, Irreplaceable. I don't have a lot of commentary about her. She's just been anointed too high up in the music world for my tastes. She's got a good voice, but just I don't care for her music overly much. Maybe 2 3 songs at the most. But it was the biggest song of that year, according to Billboard. Daniel Powder, Bad Day. Well, I thought that was earlier than that. I would have thought it was 2003, but they're saying 2006. And of course, this was used in American Idol when people got voted off. And then he had some news stories about how he had a burnout and mental breakdowns, and he had all kinds of stories. He had another hit, and that was probably now he's just trying to claw his way back. But if it's that year, that's what they say. I'll take their word for it. It was a massive song. 2005, Mariah Carey, "We Belong Together." Okay, she that was her song that made it into the 2000s, one of a few, and it was a good song. And Mariah Carey, I don't know. Is it too soon to say she's probably done? 2004, Usher, and the song is "Yeah," featuring Lil Jon and Ludacris. So Usher still manages to hang around. Massive arena act. Don't know what the story is with him lately, if he's still a big deal, but I guess if he goes on tour, you can look him up. 2003, "In the Club" by 50 Cent. So the rap was really big. Rap, hip hop. 2004, 2003, 50 Cent. Not much going on with him. 2002, Nickelback, "How You Remind Me." Now, they're famous for being hated because people say they hate their music, but it became like a thing. But they are from Canada. They really did pull off uh, a massive amount of hits for a few years, probably mid 90s to like 2007 or 6, something like that. 2001, Lifehouse, "Hanging by a Moment." This is a little strange, but I didn't think Lifehouse was that big. But somehow Billboard came up with this. But Lifehouse is a good band. I could have seen them, but I didn't go. I wish I did. 2000, Faith Hill, "Breathe." Country crossover singer, big deal for a while. Married to some Clint Black, I think. Uh, for sure, she's an act to contend with. Not sure what's going on with her now. 99, of course, Cher with "Believe." The auto tune is very heavily featured on that song. Catchy song. I'm glad for her that she managed to make it that far in her career, considering that in the early 60s she was singing backup in Phil Spector's studio. So "Believe," I did like it when it came out, and I still do enjoy it. You know, we always have to think of the message, life after love. Yes, I believe in it. 1998, Next. Too Close. I have no idea who these people are. They threw me a fast one. Um, 1997, Elton John, "Candle in the Wind," something about the way you look tonight. Yes, he redid his "Candle in the Wind" song. It was a tribute to Diana, and something about the way you look tonight is kind of carries us along. It's kind of connected to the "Candle in the Wind" song. He's doing his farewell tour, and listen, the guy's been around forever, and he's not ready to retire just yet. Next on the list, 1996, we see Los Del Rio, "Macarena," Bayside Boys mix. Now that was huge. That I couldn't, I you couldn't open the radio in that year without hearing them. And I did like the song too. Very, very upbeat. These were two old guys. I hope they made a lot of money because other people covered it. Other people did different mixes on it. I think these two old guys wrote it. So I'm not sure how they fared, but they never had another hit in the U.S. as far as I know. 1995, Coolio, Gangsters Paradise, famously using the Stevie Wonder Pastime Paradise music. Of course, Stevie did get credited on it, which is smart of Coolio to make sure that he didn't skip Stevie. And that was part of a movie with Michelle Pfeiffer. Very memorable song. I even like the redux that he did. 1994, Ace of Base, The Sign. Sorry, but overplayed. Good beat, good bubble gum. The kind of bubble gum you chew it up and you look for the garbage 7 minutes later. Not because it's a bad song. It just got so played. I started to it started to bother me. 1993, the great Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You. Yes, that was the biggest song that year. It makes perfect sense. Whitney was peaking then, and the downhill slide came within 12 years later, or whenever she died, of course. And we all know that Dolly Parton wrote this number one song and cashed in big time. 1992, Boys to Men, End of the Road. Of course, it was really big. I heard it a lot. These guys did a little bit of. They were interviewed on a radio show about 5 years ago, so they're still around. They're not boys, and they are men. 1991, Everything I Do It For You by Bryan Adams. That was, again, great song. I liked it the first 300 times, but got a little annoying. 1990, Wilson Phillips, Hold On, upbeat song. Of course, the daughters of Brian Wilson as well as John Phillips were the three girls. One of them married Billy Baldwin, and they did have 4 or 5 hits, and I think they may have broken up and started a comeback. But at this time of year, they're not looking for Wilson Phillips right now. 1989, Chicago, Look Away. That was the first hit they had, as far as I remember, with the new singer, because, of course, Peter Cetera left the band. And there were other singers, and there still are other singers in Chicago, but the main singer, Cetera, had left, and this guy came in, and he was just replaced about 2, 3 years ago. And somebody saw Chicago with the guy that replaced the guy that sang Look Away, and they were kind of missing all the vocals of the original band. 1988, George Michael with the song Faith. I did see him live, and he did put on a great show. And unfortunately, we did lose him, as everybody knows. 1987, the Bangles, Walk Like an Egyptian. Not surprised it's the biggest song of that year. It was played to death, and we did hear it a lot, and maybe more than I'd like, but it had all the ingredients of a top 40, top number one song. But over the years, it's a little much. 1986, Dionne Warwick. Well, it says only Dionne Warwick, but of course it was Elton John, Gladys Knight, Dionne Warwick, and was it Stevie Wonder? I don't remember who the fourth one. I think it was Stevie Wonder. That's What Friends Are For. And this went to AIDS. This was money raised for AIDS benefit, this song. 1985, Song of the Year, Wham! Careless Whisper, second entry by George Michael. Of course, with Andrew Ridgeley as part of Wham! Main vocal was, of course, George Michael. And also overplayed a lot, but also a beautiful song. So I don't mind saying that I don't turn it off when I hear it now. I still give it a listen. Going earlier, 1984, Prince, When Doves Cry. We're talking number one songs, according to Billboard, of all time for each year. When Doves Cry, very innovative song with all those weird sound effects that he came out with. So, showed his amazing ability to play a lot of instruments, write songs. Yeah, that was the year. 1983, Every Breath You Take by the Police. Of course, kind of a stalker type of song. Sting was the main writer, and lots of animosity between him and other members. And later on, they reformed around 2009 for a comeback tour. I'm coming to the. I'm going to get to 1955 because it's the rock era. I'd stop there because they go back, I think, to the 40s, but I don't know the music at all from the 40s, very little. So I'll go to the 55, and that would be enough for me. 1982, Olivia Newton-John with the song "Physical." Yeah, okay. Maybe you got people to work out a little more. Olivia was looking. I didn't, the early 80s were really good to her. Normally, 1970, early 1970s stars don't make it to the 80s, but she did and gave it a good run till the mid 80s. But that was probably when she became an oldies act. Kim Carnes, Betty Davis Eyes, 1981. Distinctly remember this song, played constantly. And yes, it was a great song. And once in a while, I will look it up and listen to it. 1980, Blondie Call Me. Famously, earlier in the 70s, she was pretty broke. From what I read, selling plastic jewelry on the street for $1 or two and doing little, trying to make a buck, and everyone living in a little apartment. Then she just broke. And Call Me was one of her three big hits that she had. She had about 10 hits, but three huge hits. But Call Me was was it from The Officer and the Gentleman? I think it was. Hey, we hit the 70s, 1979, Knack, My Sharona. Very edgy song, sexual, kind of pushed the envelope a little bit, but catchy enough that it didn't matter how risque it was. I remember drumming to this song. I used to put on the radio, and when that song came on, I would drum to it, do a pretty good job. Not as fast as the real drummer in the group, but still pretty good. 1978, Andy Gibb, Shadow Dancing. That was his year. He had about three or four. And this was the year I went to California. I remember hearing quite a bit of him. And another one who died too young, one of the Gibb brothers from the Bee Gees, meaning they were the Bee Gees. He wasn't, but they helped him. They wrote a lot of his hits. 1977, Rod Stewart, Tonight's the Night Gonna Be All Right. Another risque song from the 70s. A lot of moaning and stuff. And Rod, well, that was his part of his burst into the mainstream. Before that, in the early 70s, late 60s, he was not a mainstream act. But then the 70s were huge, and 80s too, of course. 1976, What Could It Be? Wings, Silly Love Songs. Yeah, no surprise. Paul McCartney had his great albums. I mean, they've all been great. Silly Love Song was a number one song, kind of saying that, he wasn't only writing silly love songs like John Lennon said, type of thing. So he was kind of a veiled attempt to reply to John Lennon's comments. 1975, Captain and Tennille, Love Will Keep Us Together. Written by, or at least co-written by, Neil Sedaka. And yes, the captain passed away. And they were saying it was kind of a loveless marriage as well. Maybe not a real marriage, but this was the peak frame of their hits from the 75, mid 70s, late 70s. They had a TV show too. 1974, Barbra Streisand, The Way We Were, of course, from the movie, the tearjerker. Beautiful song. You don't hear it that much anymore on the radio, but it's timeless, so you should don't turn it off if it does come on. 1973, Tony Orlando and Dawn, Tie Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. Very catchy, bubblegum, fun song, innocent, about a soldier coming home and tying a ribbon around a oak tree. And, I liked them at the time. I was only 13. 1972, Roberta Flack, The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. Roberta had a good run. Didn't have a lot of hits, but boy, when she had a hit, they were always number ones or top 10, most of them. And this was really a special song. I always thought it was well done with the silence through it. 1971, Three Dog Night, Joy to the World. Very happy, upbeat. They had a lot of hits in the 60s, late 60s, mid 70s, early 70s. Now I think they're still touring with one singer still there. Or there might have been two singers, I'm not sure. But they always had these like great pop gems, and this was one of them. 1970, Simon and Garfunkel, kind of the tail end of their career. Bridge Over Troubled Water. They did, of course, have solo careers, and maybe one or two. My Little Town came out later. But this was this big production that they did. Simon wrote, pretty sure he wrote it all. Maybe Garfunkel wrote through in a few words. Not sure. 1969, The Archies, Sugar Sugar. Ron Dante, lead singer. Andy Kim, co-writer. Andy Kim was following me for a while on Twitter, but every time, 2 or 3 times I gave him a message, he never replied. But that's okay, Andy. I understand. Good luck to your every year you come to Montreal and you do your like Christmas show. So I admire the tenacity and still working for so many years. 1968, the Beatles, Hey Jude. Do I really have to say anything? No, you already know everything about the Beatles without me telling you. 1967, Lulu to Sir with Love, a movie with Sidney Poitier. And I was watching one of these fundraising things on public broadcasting, and she was up there singing. And this is I don't know how recently she did the singing, because sometimes they tape these things 10 years ago and then they play them every year to raise money. But she did still have a pretty good voice, married to Robin Gibb for a while. 1966, Sergeant Barry Sadler, The Ballad of the Green Beret. An army song, kind of a soldier song, discussion of the war. 1965, Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, Wooly Bully. So they are not doing this by how many weeks songs stayed at number one. They're not doing it like that because this was not a number one song. Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, Wooly Bully I don't believe was number one. I could check it out, but it was a good little kind of like a novelty song. Well done. 1964 Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand. I really don't feel like saying a lot about a song that you've heard 10 billion times. You know who they are. 1963, Jimmy Gilmer and the Fireballs, Sugar Shack. I remember this from my youth. It was a song that I loved when it came on the radio. Just a great beat, chugging motion. Not sure if they had a lot of hits after that. 1962, Acker Bilk, Stranger on the Shore. He was a saxophonist, and it's a beautiful song and instrumental, no words. Easier to write songs without the words. 1961, Bobby Lewis, Tossin' and Turnin'. Okay, I do definitely remember that one. Should be I think I've seen it in commercials because, maybe for people that can't sleep, they should take a pill. They should use Tossin' and Turnin', or maybe for a mattress. Don't think Bobby Lewis had a long career as far as I know. 1960, year of my birth, Percy Faith, theme from A Summer Place. Very, very pretty, like classical song. You do hear it once in a while, and no words, instrumental. 1959, Johnny Horton, The Battle of New Orleans. Kind of, he had a few, like, not novelty, I wouldn't call it novelty, but he had a certain theme. He would go back in time. He would talk about things from the past, like Alaska, north to Alaska. And he had an interesting style of doing music. He mostly talked these songs. Like, he wasn't singing like a ballad or anything. He was talking these songs, Johnny Horton. 1958. It's funny, I haven't seen Elvis yet. Domenico Madungo, Volare nel Bude Plinti debut. It was a song in Italian, for sure. Well known. Volare, you've heard it. Here's Elvis, the first time. This is very strange. You'd think he would have made it later in the 50s, but Elvis Presley, All Shook Up. Classic song, well played, well loved, and his daughter's in the news a lot. Apparently, she's losing money. She's getting very fat. Poor girl. She's had trouble with her kids. I think her mother's trying to get Scientology help for her. Don't know what's going on with that girl. 1956, Heartbreak Hotel, the Elvis era, one of the earlier hits that he had. And 1955, we'll leave it there. Perez Prado, Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White, another one of these old style. I don't feel any point in going too far. Let's see how far back this list goes. If it goes really far, I might just not bother. You know what? I might as well just get to the end of it. It's not much more. If I don't know anything about it, I just won't say much about it. Leroy Anderson, Blue Tango from 1950. No, getting ahead of myself. 1954, Kitty Kalin, Little Mean Things a Lot. I do know this song, but it's so far back you don't hear it ever anymore. But it was a pretty little song, like a Connie Francis type of song. 1953, Percy Faith again, song from Moulin Rouge. Don't know it, but I do know Percy Faith. Leroy Anderson, Blue Tango, the biggest song in 1952. 1951, Nat King Cole, Too Young. Big career for Nat King Cole. Daughter 2. They sang together Unforgettable, but they spliced the two songs together. 1950, Gordon Jenkins and the Weavers. I've heard of the Weavers. Good Night, Irene. I do know that song, actually. Closing in on the 40s now. 1949, Vaughn Moore, Riders in the Sky. I actually know this one. Very upbeat song. 1948, Pee Wee Hunt, 12th Street Rag. No clue at all about it. 1947, Francis Craig, Near You. Don't know that. Perry Como, Prisoner of Love. I know Perry Como. That's 1946. Not sure about Prisoner of Love song. So we've come to the end. I'm sorry if I somehow feel like I'm kind of rushing, like talking faster than normal. Could be the coffee. Could be the stress of this week. My children are having a birthday on Sunday. They're going to be 8. And I've just got so many things going on without working. I got doctors, dentists coming up. I'm just neurotic about the whole thing. But I do appreciate it for the few who listen. I do appreciate it. And maybe I'll have a different type of show for you next week. I'll come up with something interesting. And I hope you enjoyed this one. Eddie G's Music World, September 3rd, 2019. Thank you.